Couples for sexual offenders, without breaking confidentiality. What are some relationships that instantly set off red flags, and do you try and get them to work out? Boundary violations. Testing boundaries a little bit is okay, but repeatedly violating boundaries is a big red flag. I work a lot with people who have left abusive relationships, and often they doubt they ever will date again and eventually want to. We work on their personal boundaries, but I also suggest some easy boundaries to have and how they can help. Boundary 1. Maintain your routine. If you go to bed at 9 PM and wake up to work out at 5 AM, maintain that. A decent person will respect that. A non-decent person will try to bulldoze through it. It might look like you're stay up talking with me. I'm lonely. It's romantic to talk all night. If you aren't a teen, it isn't cute. It actually makes you tired to be able to be present and critically reflective of the relationship. If they are teasing and making fun of your routine, you probably don't have the same values. It isn't about who is right or wrong. You probably aren't on the same page. Boundary 2. Cultural trend here is to move in together within a month, so might not apply elsewhere so much for almost 6 months. Don't get together more than 3-4 times a week. This boundary helps you to preserve your uniqueness. It gives you time for your interests and friends. It very quickly flushes out insecurities or controlling behavior in a potential partner. Other good ones to pay attention to are cute things that violate a boundary. Hey, I have my kids this weekend, so no in-person time, and I will only spend time on my phone after the kids go to bed at 8. And guess what? The person cutely surprises you with a coffee. I'd give this one a one-time pass. Thanks for the coffee. Sorry I can't have you in. I'm not ready for you to meet the kids. etc. The person's response to being called out tells you so much. Folks, knowing your boundaries, knowing how to set them, and knowing how to maintain them are so very important to your own personal well-being. Also learn how to respect other people's boundaries. Boundaries don't have to be permanent. They can change. But they can change because someone has earned it or lost it. Edit. To add the word months after 6 in boundary 2. Or this made me feel so much love for my husband. I'm a runner. Usually I wake up around 5:30 and go for mile-long run on Saturdays. He will drive to my location. We share our location on our phones around 7:30 with coffee and pick me up, so I don't have to do out and back, but I can just run as far as I want. He has no interest in running or early morning exercise, but he always encourages me. I was having a really rough day. This made it kinda better. Edit. OMG guys. I haven't checked my inbox for a while and just saw all your messages and awards. Thank you so much. I'm glad that my husband was able to brighten the day of each one of you, even for a little bit. I wish I could answer each of you one by one, but I have 8-month-old twins and a 3.5-year-old that's keeping me quite busy, so I will do another update later in order to answer some of your questions. That was literally me. Never thought I would date again until I went into therapy. Partner had clear and numerous boundaries that must be respected at all times while walking all over mine. Chose if and when they respond to messages. Would go radio silent if they simply didn't want to do something we planned to do. Play cute to get me to drop anything I was doing to be with them. Make an emergency that forced me to be with them for long periods of time. Basically one side making all the rules. Turns out they highly likely had a personality disorder. Loved your comment. Over time people will learn that words spoken in moments of anger continue hurting throughout a lifetime. Once you hurt someone badly, it's very likely that your relationship isn't going to be the same again. Ever. Oh my god, those are like literally my only 2 boundaries I will not let people break, and I get so much crap for it. I've had every relationship fail because I will not spend more than 3 days a week with my partner in the first 2 months. And when I go to bed, that's it, because I have a hard mucking job. Everyone, even my own mom, tells me that I'm unreasonable. Maybe it's that I live in Utah and am a woman, but nobody respects this. Contempt. When I experience true contempt from one in the relationship, I know it is usually over. Look towards a peaceful ending at that point if possible. That'll do it. In my last relationship, the guy's family had all been openly contemptuous toward me for the entire time I'd known him. I bailed once he started taking on the same attitude. Contempt 1 of Drive, John Gottman's 4 Horsemen Predictors of Divorce. Along with criticism, stonewalling and defensiveness. Why do people stay in relationships when they feel contempt? I can't find it right now, but Freakonomics did a really interesting podcast about contempt recently you might think is cool. People who approach therapy with the idea that they must convince the sexual offender that they're right and their partner is wrong. Almost like they're complaining to a parent or boss to have them sort out the problems. Yes, my patient wanted me to pick a side and complained about the partner every single time. When I pointed that out, that person just said, "You don't understand." This was a majority of the therapy sessions with my ex, trying to point out all the things I did wrong so the sexual offender could tell us how to fix it. Also, a good sexual offender avoids taking sides too. They primarily focus on creating empathy between both people. Yup, it was like here she is. Now fix her. Someone else's response made me think of this one. When a partner raises objection to meeting with me individually. During the first session I share that during assessment I like to meet with them both together and once each individually. Occasionally you'll have partners who suddenly become very critical or suspicious about this, asking why I do that. And is it ethical? And the classic "I've never heard of a marriage counselor doing that before." It goes beyond curiosity or simply inquiring about practice. There is an incredulous and almost panicked tone to it, and sure enough, every single time, they turn out to be some variation of controlling, manipulative, abusive. Edit. Just to clarify for a few of the comments, I'm not talking about doing concurrent, ongoing individual and couples sessions. This is just a one-off individual assessment session. My first 3 sessions are usually 1 couples session, 2 partner A individual, and 3 partner B individual. After that we are typically only as a couple, unless another one-off is needed for further assessment down the road. If needed, I refer out for ongoing concurrent individual or pause for more intensive individual. And thanks for the silver and awards. This makes a lot of sense. It's like they are scared of not being able to control their or someone else's image if they can't be in the room with them. The counselor my husband and I went to did just that. But a few together first. Once he got the gist of how we were together, he basically said we each had our own issues that were involving themselves in our relationship. And he wanted to address those individually. My husband would always say he hadn't listened to Frank. But when husband went back to school, he gave the exact same advice literally word for word to the younger people who turned to him for advice. Cracked me up. He had listened. As someone who was in a very abusive relationship around this time last year, I can say this is 1000% accurate. It was one of the biggest red flags for me because it was the first time I realized I was being manipulated by my ex-GF. She was adamant that if we did therapy it would only be couples therapy, even though we both had real traumas that warranted individual counseling as well. She was afraid a sexual offender would help me realize she was manipulating and abusing me, even when she didn't lay a hand on me sometimes. And you know what? She was right because I started individual therapy soon thereafter and broke up with her. One of the best decisions I've ever made. If you took the time to read this, just know there's no shame in seeking out professional help if you need it. My friend, you only get one life. Best to give yourself the best toolkit to make it a good one. Edit. Wow. I was not expecting all this love for this comment, but I really appreciate it. Also, thank you to the kind redditor who gifted me gold. This is my first one, and for a comment so personal it means a lot. As someone who was in an abusive relationship, I wasn't allowed to talk to people without him there. Like I needed to be mute and less allowed. The few times it was needed. Job interview he wanted me to keep my phone on so he could listen. So I wasn't acting like a slut. I'm glad you're able to recognize this, and I hope you make sure your patients don't have their phones on. So to know the narrative isn't still being controlled. My couple's sexual offender did that. She wanted to meet with me individually and I panicked. Not because I was abusive or a bad person, but because I thought it meant I was broken and the wrong one. She wanted to meet with me individually though, because a lot of our issues stemmed from my mom. I'm a medic, and I instantly get suspicious of possible abuse if one person, usually a SO or parent, sometimes a caregiver, doesn't want me alone with the patient. This goes for other types of therapy too. My physically abusive mom was absolutely terrified of me having one-on-one time with a sexual offender, and when I was struggling with depression and suicidal ideation, she refused to see anyone who wouldn't let her supervise what I said. It basically became a chain of sexual offenders where she tried to have my behavior corrected, but she couldn't have her own behavior scrutinized. I was naturally terrified of her and never managed to tell a sexual offender that she beat me on a daily basis, despite it being the one thing that cold meaningfully changed and helped me heal. Edit. Focused my sentences a bit more. My ex encouraged me to meet with our counselor individually, then pressured both of us to reveal what we'd spoken about. He seemed genuinely baffled that we didn't wish to share. I saw a couple that was doing retaliatory cheating and telling each other about it. When they got through their anger, they decided to call a truce and made peace. With their level of emotional maturity, I doubt it lasted. I don't know if I helped them or prolonged their suffering. It was their decision to come to counseling, so I think it was the help they wanted. Other clients realize what they really want is divorce counseling. What's the best way to behave civilly and minimize damage to the kids while we go our separate ways? I think it would be great if divorce counseling were normalized. I'm not a couples sexual offender, but I recommended a couples sexual offender to a coworker for some premarital counseling. My partner and I had really enjoyed our premarital sessions from this super nice sexual offender, and when a girl from my work got engaged, she asked for his number. The day after their first session, I got a call from the girl saying, "I can't believe you sent me to this horrible, invasive, rude counselor." I was in a panic. "Oh no. What happened?" She explained. "We went in there and sat down, and the first thing he asked was, 'So, why do you want to get married?' How rude is that? How dare he?" That's when I realized that maybe their relationship wasn't going to pan out. They called off the wedding a few months later. Lol, I don't know about the guy's side, but I definitely know she's not mature enough for marriage yet. She explained. "We went in there and sat down, and the first thing he asked was, 'So, why do you want to get married?' How rude is that, man? Is she going to be surprised when she goes to the doctor's office and the doctor asks her if she has any health issues? That just has me in awe. She wants to go to counseling to work on her relationship, but she either can't name the most basic part of being in a relationship and got defensive about it, or she really thought that why they were together wouldn't be an important part of their relationship, or any other combination of moronic reasoning for not wanting to share that and immediately jumping down the person who is meant to help's throat. Yeah. How dare the sexual offender try to find the basis of the relationship and try to build it up from there. Finding the meaning for their current goal in the relationship is terrible work. How dare he do his job? The ball's on that man to see where the problem lies. That's too funny. Sounds like you did your coworker a solid. When my ex and I went in to speak with the minister about our wedding, he asked why we wanted to get married. I was all, "I love him. I want to spend my life with him. I can't imagine growing old without him." And he literally said, "For tax purposes." My dumbass still married him after that lovely sentiment, and after I found her and a earring in our bed. I'm totally to blame for our divorce. Because we should have never gotten married. She explained. We went in there and sat down, and the first thing he asked was, "So, why do you want to get married?" How rude is that? What did she think they were going to talk about? The best place to get pizza? Couples in it for tat arrangement. For example, I cheated so you can have one night to cheat with whomever, or I violated your trust and did drugs. You can go out and do whatever for one night. It erodes trust and compounds the hurt, an affair that won't end. I've never seen a relationship bounce back where a partner is still in contact with their GF/BF. I don't mean an ex-GF/BF. I mean the person X is having the affair with, or is lying about it, controlled to an excessive amount. I most commonly see partners having to send pictures holding up a certain number of fingers, or proving that it's a live picture. This is abuse. Overbearing parents and in-laws. I understand there's a ton of cultural nuance here, and I work with couples who have arranged marriages, as well as the South Asian community. However, When a spouse is more allied with their parents and calls them on speakerphone for fights, or often speaks ill of their partner to their parents. I usually see these couples stay very unhappily married for years. It's sad. If it's not abuse and a partner is willing to end an affair and genuinely work on it, it'll help support. I think couples therapy is sometimes helping couples have the courage to voice what they really want. And that may be separation. Edit. Added another. And thanks for the awards folks. Edit 2. I can't ethically dive into some of your comments or give specific resources. But get in touch with your local crisis line or community service agency and they can direct you. Wishing all of you the best with your relationships and in-laws and parents. Edit 3. I answered some of the common questions in the comments. I intentionally have to be really vague and I can't comment on specific cases. It's unethical. I won't be able to respond to any more comments because this blew up far more than I ever expected, but thanks for reading. I hope this helps open the door to therapy for you or your loved ones in tough situations. If it's any help, I'm a sexual offender who goes to their own sexual offender. Also, some of these situations are nuanced, some are not. I'm not saying sharing your location with your partner is abusive, or that sending a picture to your spouses. Sexual offenders get a ton of data and history and information that helps us better understand what's going on. Sometimes, there's a dynamic between two people and they can set off a cycle. Read Sue Johnson's books for this. Love Sense and Hold Me Tight. Other times, I think it's unethical to assume a partner was hit because they deserved it or set their partner off. That's not okay. Please reach out to your local agencies and crisis line if you or a loved one needs help. As someone who went to couples therapy, because of my overbearing mother, we actually did get through it, but almost broke up multiple times. We are healing though, and I have learned how to unenmesh from my mother's abuse. It's very easy to work out when one person knowingly prioritizes their own wants and needs over their partner's. Relationships like this are often doomed because the person simply doesn't care enough to make any meaningful change. This hits hard. I've been trying with my wife, but she's not interested. She asked to separate just before Christmas, asked her to move out on my birthday earlier this week. It hurts to be in the same house with someone you love, but who isn't able to feel the same. But it also hurts to be apart from them. And X200B. Edit. I'm amazed by how many people have gone through or are going through the same thing. It's reassuring that I'm not alone. Thanks for your kind replies, and I hope you all find happiness. That username is not what I expected a couple's sexual offender's username to look like. What do you think is the best way to approach this issue from the non-self-prioritizing side? Whoever loves the least controls the relationship. When I see a couple in which one or both of the members are seeking to change something fundamental about the other person, we process where the need for the change comes from and the person with the issue evaluates whether it's a deal breaker for them or not. We work on acceptance and tolerance of others. I also recommend my couples are also in individual therapy on their own. Edit. Typing this on my phone. Period after first sentence should be a comma. Reddit. Thanks for the awards pals. Remember, we wake up every day and decide if we want to choose our partners. A long-term relationship is a multitude of days when you have woken up and said yes. I spent 5 years in a relationship like that. She had an image of a boyfriend in her head, and by Christ she was going to try smash me into that mold. Everything from the way I did the dishes to the way I cooked was criticized. Constant put downs about the way I dressed and shaved. Even my hobbies and friends weren't right. Her time investment in the relationship, narcissism and stubbornness kept her there, and my depression, anxiety and complete lack of self-esteem kept me there. Looking back, it was a very bad relationship for me. This rings pretty true for me. While we never sought marriage counseling, we were having issues, and I was in therapy. When I explained the situations to my sexual offender, she said, "Well, did you ever look at her behavior like this?" Nope. Never did. She said, "You should explain your point of view like this." Told my wife about it, we discussed and agreed, and problems were resolved. Sad that it had caused so many fights before, and it was just a simple issue of perspective and understanding. Child and family sexual offender here. Not exactly couples therapy, but there are key family dynamics that set off red flags for interpersonal relationships within a family. whether it is between parents and kids, or simply kids. The most important piece comes from invalidation. This comes in many forms, from gaslighting to just simple denial of another's opinion. Most of the time one or both parties are simply trying to be heard on an emotional level with an event or topic that was brought up. But the other party takes this as a personal attack on their ideals. We've all heard of or know people who will literally disagree with anything you say simply because you said it. That's the invalidation I'm referring to. Cliché moral of the story: attack the problem, not each other. People rarely have the exact same stance in a conflict, but usually in healthy relationships have very similar core values. While two parents may disagree on how to parent a child, authoritarian vs authoritative for example, the core value of caring about their children and wanting them to succeed is often the same. By determining they are within the same realm of issue, two parents with different ideals can see themselves as allies in a conflict rather than enemies. Two things that people believe are red flags of poor relationships are the amount of conflicts the couple has and yelling. Neither is inherently a characteristic of good or bad relationships, but may be perceived as more common in bad relationships. The reality of this situation is that healthy relationships actually have a comparable amount of conflicts, but more intensely focus on addressing the core issue rather than the beliefs and self-worth of the other. As for yelling, in this case it's an emotional response to not feeling heard. While not the best response to distress, it also isn't an indicator of poor communication skills. What is an indicator of poor communication is yelling over the other person in an attempt to invalidate their point. Semi-related example: I had two people who were seemingly incredibly upset at each other. Parent A felt that Parent B was out of the house too frequently and did not want to be a part of their children's life. Parent B felt that Parent A didn't understand how busy their work schedule was. The fight revolved around Parent B seemingly not caring about the kids, until Parent B explained they felt Parent A was better at parenting and felt like they were only escalating the children when they started to parent. Parent A's understanding of the argument quickly changed from "you don't love our children" to "you're scared to let our children down." As you can guess, the tone of the conversation changed dramatically and there was no longer a sense that Parent A and B were on opposing sides. The issue instead became helping build confidence in Parent B's parenting abilities, which Parent A was much more validating and supportive of. Not all cases are this clean cut by any means, but I figured it'd demonstrate the basic idea of finding core values and attacking an issue together. I remember going to a family for sexual offender as a child. As soon as the shrink refused to accept that a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, or my father were 100% responsible for every problem, my mother got up, told everyone off, and drove off, leaving us 3 stranded. Of course we never went again. Invalidation. This comes in many forms, from gaslighting to just simple denial of another's opinion. I grew up being told you don't feel that when my parents didn't want to deal with how I felt. You can't fix a crying child by telling them everything is alright and there is no need to be upset. I'm still pretty bad at knowing how I feel, and introspection makes me really uncomfortable. By comparison, factual gaslighting is easy to deal with. That never happened. I have actual physical scars from things that officially never happened, but the scars tell me that, well, something happened. Relationship for sexual offender here. One of the biggest red flags I see when working with a new couple is when they've totally forgotten the good. Part of relationship therapy is reconnecting a couple with what they like about each other, what initially attracted them to each other, and what the positives are between them. When people come in and they've been so unhappy for so long that they actually can't remember what it was like to be in love, or to even like each other, they're just about hopeless. You don't have to be happy for therapy to work, but if you can't even reminisce about the good times, then the good times are probably over. Edit. This is clearly resonating with some folks, so I'd like to recommend a book. If you find yourself in this situation, check out Hold Me Tight by Drive, Sue Johnson. She gives some solid explanations of how people get into this cycle, as well as some suggestions on how to try and navigate it. Is it possible for that to be used against one another in a relationship where one person isn't happy and lets their so know, and then other person responds by saying that the other person doesn't remember all the good things they've done in the relationship or all the good times they've had together? What does that mean? Is that still a red flag?